Service, this is your Garten Staudinger again from Munich, and today we're talking about a topic that drives more living rooms crazy than any forgotten watering can. Getting rid of fungus gnats. 3 effective home remedies. That's exactly what today is about. These tiny black flies that rise out of your flower pots as if they built their own runway down there are not a coincidence. They're a system problem. You water once and suddenly an entire squadron takes off, like it's boarding time in your living room. And I'll tell you something right at the beginning that might sting a little. 90% of people do exactly the wrong thing when trying to fight fungus gnats. They hang up yellow sticky traps, sprinkle something on the soil, hope for a miracle, and then 2 weeks later they wonder why everything is flying again. That's exactly why today we're doing this with a system. I'll show you 3 effective home remedies that actually make sense. But I'll also explain why they only work if you understand the cycle behind the problem. Stay until the end because I'll give you my clear 3-step strategy that ends the flying chaos sustainably, instead of just covering it up for a short time. Chapter 1. Where do fungus gnats actually come from? Before we fight them, we need to understand where they come from. Many people think they somehow brought them into the house. In reality, the problem is often already inside the bag of potting soil. In cheap or constantly moist soil, eggs or larvae may already be present. Seed-starting soil is especially susceptible because it has a very fine structure and is kept consistently moist. Open windows in summer, wet sources, or decorative pots with standing water add to the problem. Moisture plus organic material, for fungus gnats that's basically a wellness vacation with full board. So you're not the only one to blame, but you may have created perfect conditions. Chapter 2. Why the flies aren't actually your main problem. Now comes the crucial point. The flies you see are not the real problem. They're just the visible tip of the iceberg. The real drama happens down inside the pot. That's where the larvae live, tiny translucent worms with dark heads, nibbling on the fine roots of your plants. Young plants are especially vulnerable here because their roots are still delicate and don't have large reserves. A mature plant might survive this, but a seedling can literally collapse from heavy larval feeding. Yellow sticky traps catch the adult insects, but not the eggs and not the larvae. If you only fight above the surface, you lose below the surface. Chapter 3. Why 90% of people get everything wrong. Here lies the thinking error. Most people only fight what they can see. They react hectically, try 3 home remedies at the same time and expect peace after 2 days. When that doesn't work, they try the next miracle cure. What they don't change is the cause, and in most cases that cause is constantly moist soil. The real problem isn't watering too much once, it's watering too often. A sip here, a little there, always nicely and evenly moist. It sounds caring, but for fungus gnats, it's basically a lifetime subscription. Chapter 4, the most important household trick, dry stress. The first and most important trick costs exactly €0. Let the top 2 to 3 centimeters of soil dry out before watering again. And by dry, I don't mean slightly dry to the touch. I mean really dry. The larvae need moisture. If the surface dries out regularly, life becomes uncomfortable for them. Your plant, however, handles this just fine because its main roots sit deeper in the soil. With this simple step, you restore balance, without chemicals and without drama. Chapter 5. The sand barrier. Interrupting the cycle. Once your watering habits are under control, the sand barrier comes into play. And I don't mean a decorative dusting. You need at least 1 centimeter of fine dry sand on the surface. This layer makes it difficult for female gnats to lay their eggs in the moist soil, and at the same time it blocks the path of the larvae trying to move upward. You are literally interrupting their life cycle. Just make sure the soil underneath is not soaking wet. Otherwise, you're simply storing moisture under the sand. Chapter 6. Myth check. Baking powder, matches, and more. The internet is full of tricks. Matches in the soil, baking powder in the watering can, vinegar traps on the windowsill. Some of these things can have a small supporting effect, but they are not a standalone solution. Baking powder can change the soil environment in moderate doses, but if you overdo it, you shift the pH value and create new problems. Matches sound nostalgic, but they don't replace a well-thought-out strategy. Vinegar traps help against flying insects, but not against the larvae in the soil. Structure always beats random action. Chapter 7. Maybe your pot is the problem. Another point that is often overlooked is the container itself. Pots without drainage holes are basically a guarantee for waterlogging. Oversized pots for small plants store unnecessary moisture, and if water constantly stands in the decorative pot underneath, you've essentially created a breeding pool. Sometimes the problem isn't the plant, it's the entire system around it. Chapter 8. Patience. How long does it really take? Here comes a very important point. Patience. The life cycle of fungus gnats lasts about 2 to 3 weeks. Even if you do everything right, it takes time. If you give up after 3 days, you lose. If you stay consistent, you win. This isn't an instant solution, and it's an interruption of the cycle. Chapter 9. If it's really bad, use nematodes. If a black cloud rises every time you water and your plants visibly suffer, household tricks alone are often not enough. Then you can support the process biologically. For example, with nematodes. These tiny beneficial worms specifically attack the larvae in the soil. This isn't a chemical hammer, but intelligent plant protection. But even here, the same rule applies. Without proper watering habits, even this won't work long term. Chapter 10. The 3-step strategy against fungus gnats. Let's summarize. First, fix your watering habits and say goodbye to permanently swampy soil. Second, create a physical barrier like a sand layer to interrupt the life cycle. Third, if the infestation is severe, use biological helpers in a targeted way. Don't use 10 products at once. Don't try every internet trick. Bring calm and system into the process. Chapter 11. Why 90% keep losing. The 90% water too often, fight only the flies, randomly combine home remedies, and give up too early. That's exactly why the infestation keeps coming back. But starting today, you're not part of that group anymore. Fungus gnats are not the end of the world, but they are a clear signal that something in your pot is out of balance. If you understand the system, you win. You don't have to fight like it's a pest war. You just have to understand how the cycle works and then simply switch it off. Write in the comments whether you're currently in the middle of the flying chaos or whether you've already dried out the swamp. I'm curious to see who has already successfully changed their system and who is still living with a tiny airport in the living room. If you enjoy my YouTube channel and you like clear, honest gardening tips without myths and hocus pocus, then click subscribe now, activate the bell so you don't miss any videos, and share this with your friends who also have small black flying squadrons in their living rooms. Together we'll save more plants than any yellow sticky trap ever could. And if you're thinking, okay Staudinger, that was helpful, but what else can I do to make my garden more relaxed in the long run? Then make sure to also watch my video, 15 perennial vegetables you only have to plant once. That one isn't about fighting problems, why? It's about enjoying your garden. Plant once, harvest for years. That's the relaxed king's class of gardening. Fungus gnats are not the end of the world, but they are a clear signal that something in the pot is out of balance. If you understand the system, you win. In that sense, bring calm into it, bring system into it, and make the world a little greener. Thanks for being here.